Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Sometimes a serious attitude to work does not impress your bosses. Well, as they say, you reap what you sow. I think our OP did the right thing. And we'll tell you more after a short pause. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. I gave you 2 weeks. I'm not giving you 2 hours. I worked at a pizza place as a delivery driver/kitchen. It was fun, but as to be expected, a lot of the kitchen staff were teenage stoners who didn't care a whole lot about anything. To the point where I actually got a $1 raise 2 weeks into my time there because I actually did my job instead of standing around watching TV like the other driver. I got a call from a salaried office position I'd applied to a month earlier stating they'd filled the position I applied for, but they had another job open at a similar but higher level. Was I still interested? I said hell yes. It came with benefits and insurance. It had normal day hours, so I would actually be able to see my boyfriend, and I'd make about 3 times as much money. I apologized to the owner for leaving them so soon, about a month after I got hired, but that this was my 2 weeks' notice. He thanked me, I went home. I showed up the next day and saw that I'd been taken off the schedule completely after that day. I asked the manager why that was, and he said every time someone gave their 2-week notice, they quit, so they just didn't put me on the schedule. I was pissed because I could have given my new job an earlier start date and not been broke for 2 weeks, but there was nothing I could do. 4 p.m. arrived and my last shift was done. I packed up my crap and asked my manager to cash me out. He told me they needed me to stay until 6 p.m. because the new driver they hired wouldn't get there until then. I looked him dead in the eyes and said, I gave you my 2 weeks notice and you took me off the schedule. You obviously don't want me here. Then I put my apron on the counter, told the sandwich guy to split my tips, all $6.20, and walked out. I enjoyed the vacation despite not getting paid. And our second story. Have fun getting out of your apartment. I share an entryway with another apartment. The front door opens to a shared foyer. My trashy neighbors were getting rid of their trashy dresser filled with clothes and decided instead of dragging their trashy dresser the whole 20 feet to the curb for pickup, they would just leave it at the bottom of the steps. For 2 weeks, it got rained on, started to mildew, and I'm pretty sure squirrels had taken up residence. The dresser was directly below my bedroom window, by the way. I'd asked my trashy neighbors 3 times to drag this thing to the street, and they never did. Seriously, it's 20 feet. I would have even helped them to move it if I was asked, and was polite the first 2 times I talked to them. I left a note on the door and finally got a little surly the last time I asked, but they blew me off every time. Finally, I had enough. In the morning, the day of trash pickup, before the neighbors were awake, I'm a big guy and my neighbors are both very tiny people, so I dragged this heavy butt dresser back up the steps, through the front door, and plonked it directly in front of their apartment door, completely blocking them in. Again, I left a note. Put on curb for pickup, please. Hopefully, they had to take all the drawers out to make the dresser light enough for them to move. When I got back from work, the dresser was gone. And our last story. Karen gets arrested because I wasn't being a good cashier? So I used to work as a cashier in a supermarket. This story took place on my 4th day of work there, and my 2nd day working at a cash on my own without a supervisor sitting next to me, teaching me the ropes. Yes, I had 2 days of training. Supermarkets in my country are a zoo on a regular day. However, Thursdays and Fridays are absolute mayhem at the store and are a special kind of hell. Fridays, the store closes 2 hours before sundown, as do most stores in this country. During winter, this means around 1400, and in the summers, closer to 1630. People get crazy on Fridays trying to get all their shopping done and get home in time to cook dinner. If you can avoid coming to the store on Friday, please do so at all costs. I also told people after this day, the reason Thursdays are hell is because we get all the customers who don't want to come on Friday. Now, this was early evening on a Thursday at a time when the store is absolutely jam-packed. We had 10 checkout lines open, and every line had at least 6 to 7 people in line, Basically, if you're stuck with a slow cashier, there's nowhere else to go unless you have 10 items or less. Everything's going well until I get a customer with 2 shopping carts full of items, mostly non-perishable items. I found out later he buys this for a community center in his neighborhood and he fills up the pantry twice a year. Nice guy. He greeted me very politely and said the most dreaded words I could have heard that night: "This will be a delivery." Back to the story. This guy has 2 full carts and wants a delivery. I say, sure, no problem. Then I turn to everyone else in line and let them know that this is a delivery and will take just a bit longer than usual, and apologize for any delay this may cause. We always do this so customers will be aware of the delay and can move to another cash if they're in a hurry. This is when the whole line groans simultaneously. I don't blame them. There was nowhere else to go. I could see every one of them craning their necks to check out other lines, and they all decided to stay. So I start scanning as fast as I can. I'm pretty good with numbers, so even though it's my 4th day, I remember many of the codes and things are moving rather quickly. I get to a point where the bagger can't keep up with all the items in the area to the left of me, where I placed all the scanned items. It's just a mountain of cans and bags of chips and whatnot. I can't even scan another item because they're falling back onto my scale. At this point, I stop and ask if he wants help bagging. The customer and the bagger are both appreciative, and I help bag groceries for a few minutes, just enough to clear some space so I can continue scanning items. This happens every few minutes. It gets full, I stop to help, clear some space, and keep going. This is where the Karen comes into play. She's maybe early 40s, long brown hair, and looks nothing like a Karen except for the way she was standing, with one hand on a hip that extended so far to the side I wasn't sure how she's still standing. She's in my line, about 5 to 6 people in front of her still. This is the conversation that follows. Karen: "Hello, what are you doing?" Me: "Not answering because I didn't think she was talking to me. I keep scanning." Karen: "Excuse me? What kind of cashier are you? Why aren't you doing your job? Stop being lazy and do your job." She screams at the top of her lungs. Me: "I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm just trying to..." Karen: "That's not your job. You're a cashier. Do your job. Do your job." Me: "I'm just helping to move things along faster. If there's a problem or you're in a hurry, feel free to move to another line. I'm sure another cashier will be more than happy to serve you." Karen, not listening anyway and having none of it: "Just do your damn job. You're a cashier. What's wrong with you? Are you stupid? You should be fired." I stop listening at this point and don't answer as I'm still helping to bag and scan as fast as possible, knowing it's not going to help anyway. However, I see one of my managers, let's call him Joe, walk up to Karen. Joe's great, by the way, always helping the workers. Joe: "What seems to be the problem?" Karen, still yelling: "Your cashier is awful. She's lazy and she's not doing her job. You should fire her. Tell her to do her job. She's not doing her job." She repeated that a few times, like a broken record. Joe looks over at me for a second, understands exactly what's happening, turns to Karen and says, "Can't you see she's trying to help? She's trying to make this go much faster." Now Karen starts screaming words, I'm assuming, but I couldn't really make them out. She was practically foaming at the mouth. Joe tries to calm her down by explaining, or trying to, how me bagging items is actually helping. And this makes Karen even more irate, if you can believe it. Spit flying from her mouth, arms flailing, screaming like a banshee, suddenly I notice an older woman, nice older lady, must have been around 80 years old, trying to get Karen's attention by tapping her on the shoulder. It takes a few tries, but she finally gets her attention and spins her around by her shoulder. NOL. "Hey, Karen! Karen! Excuse me, Karen!" Karen: "What?" NOL. "Your daughter's crying." The silence lasted an entire 2 seconds, because that's when Karen started yelling at Joe. Karen: "Look what you did! You and your stupid, lazy cashier made my daughter cry!" And a bunch of other crazy sounds that were perhaps supposed to be words. Things happened in slow motion for the next few seconds. She started to swing towards Joe. Joe's not a big guy, but he's bigger than Karen, that's for sure, and he's not easily intimidated. Not his first Karen. She would have decked him right in the face if the NOL hadn't grabbed her in a bear hug to stop her. Yes, she did. I had to pick my jaw up off the floor. At this point, other customers got involved trying to peel off the NOL from Karen and stop Karen from trying to kill Joe and from Joe trying to kill Karen because he was fuming by then. At this point, I saw mall security storm the castle. Our store was inside a mall, and the sea of people just surrounded Karen, and I couldn't really see much of anything more. Kind of like football players when there's a fumble and they all jump on the ball. By the sound of yelling getting farther and farther away, I figured Karen was being either led to the back office or to the mall security office, mall jail. This entire time this is happening, I'm still bagging and scanning items, and I'm about halfway through this customer's purchase. I finish up with him with no more problems. He was nice and thanked me profusely for helping with the bags, even though technically it wasn't part of my job. He said I was the fastest and nicest cashier he'd ever had the pleasure of meeting. I was just happy to help. Once the rush died down, I went for a break. I met another employee in the back room and started to tell him of what just happened when he cut me off. She was yelling at you? Ha ha! I heard that. Well, everyone heard that, but I had no idea WTF was happening. He told me that police was called and Karen escorted out of the store and the mall in handcuffs. I filled him in on everything, and we spent the next 30 minutes laughing. I don't know what happened with the child. I'm assuming they called another family member to pick her up. I also don't know what happened with Karen after that. Since I ended up working there for another year, I never saw her again. Hopefully, she learned to do her grocery shopping on Tuesday or Wednesday, or was possibly in prison or house arrest. This was the first Karen I had the displeasure of meeting while working at that store, but definitely not the last. You did an amazing job. My jaw would have also hit the floor if I saw an 80-year-old woman wrap someone up in a bear hug. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.